So on the Gari page, we have this code related Git repo and the Git releases. So how we are going to proceed is that we are going to first click on the Git releases link over here that it is shown, MS06 releases. Now in this browser, for some reason, it is not opening. So let me open it in another browser. And these releases, if you see, there are quite a few releases that are mentioned over here. This is the release 07. Then there is this release 06, release 05, and so on and so forth till the release 01. So you can start with the release 03 basically, which is having the first code, that is the discovery server and discovery client. Release 02 is also having a very basic code. You can start with release 02 because we want to build up our competency one step at a time. So what you can do is that you can go to the releases. Of course, what you can do after the session is that you can go to this link, that is the releases link that is there in our Gari page, git releases URL. This you have to click. This opens up this releases page. Then you have to click on this release 02. I'm not sure why it has got not ordered, but it is somehow like this. Release 1, then release 3,
Vishali,
then
one
release.
question. Do you need to provide any access? Because I'm trying to access it from my GitHub account.
I will
It's
reiterate that
showing
don't.
404.
Yeah, I would reiterate that please do not do any code or anything parallelly because we need to cover a lot of things. And this you are as it is going to do outside of the. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, this year as it is gonna do after the session because see microservices is something which is very much related to your work that we are doing right now. So you can do it afterwards when you have a lot of time. Right now we have only 2 hours. Now it is reduced to 1 hour. So we will focus only upon listening to what is gonna be explained. And trust me, it's gonna be very simple for you to do it at your end because this releases has been sent to you. These are zip files of the code. You can also check out the code and do it and all. But you know what? If you check out now, this will be having see all of this API gateway and all that are implemented. Even the product service, order service will be totally different annotations because till we reach this level now, API gateway service, which is part of the session 2, there will be a lot of things that will need to be have in the discussion. So that stage we have not yet reached. That's why these releases I have done so that we start building our competencies one after the other. So now what is this release? Let us click on the link 2, and this is actually having the code with this commit ID. So what is this commit ID? This is having a commit ID which explains adding API collection for basic order and product service code. Okay, this is for the release 2. Now let us go to the release 3. What is it containing? Here we will go to this commit ID. What it is saying, enabling order and product service to register to the discovery server. That is what is done in the release 3. Now in release 4, what is it having done? This is implementing the discovery server, config server with distributed config stored in the Git. Order service is implemented as a discovery client and config client, whereas product service is made as a discovery client and it is implemented to become a config client. So each of these releases, as we go higher up, have incremental functionalities getting incorporated in them. So what you have to do is you have to go to the release 2 page. You have to download this source code. You can just click on it and it starts downloading over here. You can go to the download folder and you can then copy and do all the things on it. We will come to that part. So basically implementation using cloud. So we are at this point. So we will be doing the implementation using Spring Cloud, and we will proceed with what are microservices and why and how quickly. So what are microservices? We already have quite a bit of a knowledge about what actually is a microservice. It is basically a very fine grained services which are basically based on service oriented architecture. They are loosely loosely coupled and independent instead of a single monolith application. Each of the involved services is independently versioned, executed, and scaled. So this part, no, independently versioned, executed, and scaled, this is achieved in numerous ways, and DevOps is one of the ways. So what we are going to do in our code, we will see one after the other. So each service runs on its own process, and we can convert a REST service into microservice. That we are going to do today itself. Microservices can be written in a variety of programming languages and frameworks. As we know that they can be deployed independently. So once you deploy it independently, it doesn't matter what that endpoint is using in the backend, whether it is a .NET, whether it is Java or any technology, we'll get to that. And basically why we need microservice, again, because microservices can be developed or deployed independently, and they can be scaled up and down independently. So each of the microservice uses its own data store. So that is something that we can configure in our code or in the deployment configuration files. So we can have this independently developed. Now how to implement microservice? So this is the core area. How do we implement the microservice to become the microservice that we all know about, that is in the industry? So these are different frameworks. Spring Boot is one of them, and other frameworks are Micronaut, Oracle, Helidon, Golang, Python, Node.js, and so many other frameworks. If you just search for this, no, in the Google, popular frameworks that implement, we are going to focus only on Spring Boot, but there are a lot of other frameworks that in the industry they implement microservices. It is the same way for REST services. There are a lot of implementation frameworks available. Similarly, for microservices there are a lot of implementation services available. Now additional info you can see in the self study section. So going back to the Gari page, you can see this code related API collection. I have already opened it over here. Code related Spring Initializer. Now, since all of you have done REST, you have hands-on on the REST, and you can so you already know about the Spring IO project. This is basically what I had used for creating all these releases. But you can start off directly from the zip or directly from checking out the code, because all of this will take like right now in the session, if I do it, so it will take a long time. So we'll directly start from the zip. The zip file will have the POM XML, and in that you already have all the dependencies that have been used. So guys, basically now this implementation project, there are a lot of these implementations already there on the internet. But what happens with those implementations, I'll tell you. Once you start actually doing the implementation, you realize that the code is not working with the POM files that they are provided. That is because they have written it maybe 2 years back. Maybe they are using not the exact versions of the code that you intend to use, etc., etc. So here is a working piece of code. So you can refer to it by using the releases link, and you can start off right from that point. So these are code related Git repo and releases we have already seen. And other than that, there is something called as self-study. But guys, you are already into REST services, so this may not be required to be told. So there are these different links that I found to be useful. So there are definitely a ton of other links. You can refer to these also, and maybe your own what we would say the favorite what we would say, these go to links that you will be having. So those you can refer, no issues with that. So starting and other installers maybe. So let me just check if I have missed out something. These are some other things, but guys, you are already into all the REST APIs, so you may be having this, no, not needed. So yeah, going ahead. Yeah, we will see what all exactly we are gonna do today. So this is a e-commerce application which is containing a product service and an order service we are gonna build. And what is gonna be the product service? It is basically gonna be connected to a database, and it will be having endpoints to fetch the list of products, fetch an individual product, delete all products, delete an individual product. Similarly, it will be for creating an individual product. These are the endpoints that we will be having in the product service. In the order service, similar endpoints, but it will be for create an order, fetch individual order, and things like that. And this will be connected to the MySQL. Let me This will be connected to the MySQL, and product service is connected to the MongoDB. So let's read out this. It is a microservice having MongoDB backend. Yes, and it is a discovery client. So these are the REST endpoints. If we have to convert them into microservices, you just need to add one XML dependency in their pom.xml, and they get converted because the backend Spring Boot will take over and ensure that the product service then communicates with discovery server and all. So at the code level, we don't have to do any stuff in the discovery client. We only have to make a discovery server. Now, what is a discovery server? What is meant by discovery server? That we will check. So this is about the discovery server. This is a discovery server, and it is connected to all the client services, discovery client services. How do we connect that? How do we do that? We'll see in the zip file that we are gonna open, that we will see. So basically the concept is that now in microservices, the concept is that we have to make a lot of services which are independent from one another. And once we make them independent, then we have to make them scalable also. So once we make them independent, once we make them scalable, that only means that in our server, there are gonna be hundreds of product services, hundreds of order services, and each of them we will need to keep a track of each of them. That is, what is their endpoint, what is their host ID, what is the port at which they are running, these things and all. So how to keep track of that? That is done by the discovery server. We will see how we were to do that. We'll see in the code. So the discovery server is used for that purpose. How to do that we will see. So discovery server, what it does is that basically when it boots up, the product services and the order services can then start communicating with the discovery server. Discovery server maintains a service registry. That means it is a key value pair of which service is hosted at which endpoint, which is the host and which is the port number that it is running on. And that, how does it obtain that data? The client service has to send that data to the discovery server. Now, how that is sent? That is done by the Spring Framework. So, Spring Framework internally has now today I'll be showing a few classes by debugging into the Spring Framework code. But in the next session, I will go into a more deeper level because this is a first session, and I wasn't aware about how what all you guys are into as of now. So today we will look majorly into building up our code up to this level of whatever is being up till the discovery server actually, so that we get ready for our session number 2. So this is the discovery server that we will be doing, and there will be a config server. Now, when we talk about configuration, each of our REST API, they have their application.properties, and in that application.properties, we specify numerous configurations, the database credentials, and numerous other server endpoints, which may not be required to be exposed to the entire world. So that means that we need to put that configuration file into one repo, and we need to take that configuration file from that repo and use it into our services. So initially in the release number 02, we will be having a centralized configuration which will actually not in the release 02 but in the release 05. We will be putting the configuration into the centralized config and reading it out from the centralized config instead of picking it from the application.properties. No, we'll be taking it out and putting it into a centralized config. So because of this, what advantage we get is that since this component is outside of the product service, all of these 100, 200 product service instances can then access the centralized config in the Git. And we need to change only and only in this place in one file. If we need to, suppose tomorrow, change the server location of any other internally called service, or if we want to change the database, or we want to update the credentials, these things we need to do only in one file in one code commit. and then in the back end it is taken over by itself. Now in the release 05 we will be manually pulling the data from centralized config, but as we build up our competency in the coming sessions we are going to incorporate the RabbitMQ. RabbitMQ part is to be done in the session 2, and session 2 code is already committed into the Git repo. So this part we will be doing in the next session. Today we will be doing it manually. In the next session we will see how to do it via RabbitMQ, where we needn't do any pull at all. The RabbitMQ itself will be doing the refresh of the endpoint so that the product service get the refreshed value of the centralized config in the Git. Now going ahead, we also have the HashiCorp that we are gonna implement. This is implemented in, I think, the session release number 7, I think so. HashiCorp. HashiCorp we won't be doing it today. HashiCorp is in the session 2, that is in the coming Monday we will be doing HashiCorp. Today we are just gonna write all of our database credentials, database URLs, endpoints into the order service and the product service as it is. We would not be extracting it outside of application service, application or properties today. So that is for the next session. So this is our landscape that we are gonna develop. API gateway we are gonna do it in the next session. So we will have a Postman client which will be used to fire the get API, which all of us know that we will be we all know about the Postman client. So from there is this endpoint of the services. Now this may not be a complete endpoint, but this is just to depict that this is the way we are gonna hit the API gateway. Now over here the port that you see is 8080, but that is because after the API gateway implementation the port gets reduced to 8080. But as we know that each of the individual services, if we boot it up, it will individually take up its own port number. Then how come by hitting only 8080 we are still able to add the product, we are still able to create the product, delete it, fetch it, etc. That we're gonna see in the API gateway part. So this is the entire landscape that we are gonna develop till by the end of the session 2. So in the session 1, we are going to do discovery server, discovery client, and the database connection. So these are the parts that will be, and the configuration. So config server also, centralized config. Only thing is that RabbitMQ today we are not going to do. Tomorrow we are, the next Monday we are going to do. So these are the parts we will cover today. Now let us go back. Yeah. So implementation for the service discovery. Now service discovery, when we say service discovery, what is the service discovery? Basically, it maintains a service registry, and in that service registry, different endpoints are already like input. But how do they go over there is that because the discovery server allows the client discovery services to ping it and send the information about their where their instance is running to the discovery server. Now that is all taken care of by the Spring Cloud Netflix discovery server and client implementation. So internally Spring Cloud is having this Netflix framework, and this Netflix framework has numerous different libraries that they use for different purposes. So you can see a few of them into the links that are already there in the Gari page, and I have not opened them, but guys, you can see that into that link. So what all is Netflix being done? The Histrix server implementation is in Netflix. So it is basically an OSS framework, and it provides quite a lot of open source services. Then centralized configuration. Centralized configuration means all the configuration that we are having in our application, we need to take it out and put it elsewhere. Now this centralized configuration can have different ways in which we can take the configuration out and put it. Now where to put it? There is an option to put it into a Git. There is an option to put the configuration into a different other endpoint altogether, or it can be a file system folder where the endpoint, where the configuration files can be stored, or it can be a database where we can put the configuration and update it using any other GUI client, or have a separate service altogether for that. But then the client applications, they can use it via just having the doing the Git fetch or things like that, the database fetch. And centralized configuration is also based on the Spring Actuator. Now, what is Spring Actuator? Actuator in itself is a framework where we have this ability. The framework gives our application the ability to refresh our properties that are lying in the application context. So there will be one Spring actuator that will be running that will only do one work, and that is to fetch from the Git repo and keep its context updated. Or we can also do it manually. So ideally we cannot do it manually, right? So because when it is application is running in the production, we cannot manually keep on refreshing our context to fetch the data. So it needs to be done automatically. But anyway, so whatever the thing is, it is done by the actuator. Then vault integration means having our key values to be encrypted, and that is done by different providers. HashiCorp is one of them, HashiCorp Vault. We will see how to. Now these are the code prerequisites that will require to get it installed. You can try for this MongoDB. If you already have it installed, well and good. If not, you might have to install it. So you need to install these two. The MongoDB, this is the server. MongoDB 704 is the server, and MongoDB Compass is the client of the server. So this MongoDB Compass will allow you to, it is like a SQL server. I'll show it when we come to it. I'll launch it and I will show it. So it is like the SQL workbench, or it is a client application of the MongoDB. So these both you will be requiring to install, or any other MongoDB installer that you already have. You can use that also. That's also fine. For MySQL also same thing. You can use your own installer that you already have, or you can use this link that I provided. You can tell the service ticket person that I require this for a training, and it is very much related to my work, and you can inform your supervisor and request for his permission if required. Now going ahead, there are all the links we all discussed right now. So that is the thing that I was telling some time back. And download the source code. Okay, now we are gonna do the download of the source code. So we will go to the release. Okay, let me just have a quick check. So guys, it is close to 6 p.m. and we have it till 7 p.m., right? So it is 5 to 7. So 1 hour is completed. We have got 1 hour. Let us do one thing. We will directly go to the release 5, or let us start from release 3, and then we will see where what to. Okay. Release 2 we will start with. So we will go to the releases page to begin with, and we will go to the release 2. This is the release 2 working order and product with the API client. Now, how is this release generated? There is this release button at the top, draft a new release. I just clicked on that and gave some title, gave some description, and publish the release. In that way, this release gets published. And what will be inside of the release? In the inside of the release will be the latest at that point of time, whatever is the latest code commit done to the main branch. Now, I didn't create any feature branch or anything because we don't need a feature branch right now. The requirement is for conducting the training. So the feature branch is not created. So whatever is the updated code in the main, it picks it up and bundles it in this release, thereby giving us this particular release. Say, let's say the release number 2. Now, API collection and code for basic order service and code. So what is inside of the order service and product service, guys? I'll just explain to you for one release what all is there. The remaining releases are the same, but I think if I explain, you will understand that what is going on with this release. So I mean, you will definitely understand without me telling, but it will make things clear definitely. So working order and product code, service code is there, and we have these API endpoints that are working in this code. Get by ID, post, delete by ID. Post means the create request. So all of these are implemented in the product and order service individually. They are not yet connected to any of the discovery server or anything in this release 02. Guys, we have to build it right from the beginning. It's better if we build it from the like the basic concepts, so that we get to know what we have done so far by the time we reach the release 7. And each of these releases, no, these are the kind of a release notes, you can say, what all is going in the release. and what all has to be done in the release. Like for example, in release 07, we have to wait for a few seconds because the server is taking a bit of a time to launch. That is the only thing. If you see that the endpoint is not working, it is giving a 404, don't worry, you just have to wait for this particular release 07. That is because of the RabbitMQ integration. We will come to that part and we will debug it and see it what the issue is. But I have noted these things in the release notes of each of the releases. Then the Postman collection screenshot, you can just have it referred. RabbitMQ, when you install it as a service. RabbitMQ as a service so that it will help. It's good if you install it today or tomorrow so that if there are any issues now with the tickets may not get resolved immediately. They will require 1, 2, 3 days time. So by the time the next Monday comes when we need the RabbitMQ, it will be ready on your machine. Then this is about the latest diagram that is related to this release 07. So I started putting these diagrams after the release 07. I didn't really get the idea that I'll have to put it in the previous releases. So what we will do is that for previous releases, we will just manually make a note that the release the contains discovery server, product service, and order service. Like that we will have to manually do, but that should be okay. Now this is again one particular screenshot how the config refresh is functioning. That means in this git repo we change this value. Of course this is a test value, but there are configuration values also that get refreshed. But for the first release it is a test value, so we change it as today is a weekday in the config and we hit the commit button, and when we refresh it, what we get over here on the screen is today is a weekday. That means the configuration value. We will get to that point. So like this, each of the services has been explained over here. So please check the endpoint and refer to the latest commit for the order endpoint correction. Okay, fine. There is some correction in the order endpoint in this particular SRC. There is a postman collection that is bundled, and there seems to be one order endpoint minor correction. So the latest release will be having this. Let us just download it and put it into our IntelliJ and see what this issue is all about. So also please check the test file in the product MS, which has some code deleted to allow document creation in the MongoDB. Yes. So also guys, there is one particular change that I have done in the product service because I observed that there are two databases that get created in the case of MongoDB. If we use the by default code that Spring initializer bundles it and gives it, it contains some code to automatically create one document that we intend to do manually. The Spring code manually automatically does. So that correction is there in this source code is what I have noted over here. So we'll just be cognizant about these two things, that we have to do these corrections after we download the zip. So let us download the zip. Mm, yeah. Yeah, releases. We go to 02 dot. We click over the assets. We click over this. Actually, we have already downloaded it. We go to the downloads folder, refresh it, and we go to the top. The date modified, we change it. Hmm. So this is the downloaded zip MS06 working order and product with APIs. So that is the functioning order service and functioning product service with the APIs. Now what we have to do is we have to copy it. Let us copy it and we will paste it into some of our folder. Let us put it into C column temp folder. We will right click and we will paste it over here and we will unzip it. Extract all. Extract. Yeah. So once you've extracted it, as we see, this is the code. So we have to rename this parent folder as release 02 because this was belonging to release 02. Once you make this folder, you have to cut this folder and you have to paste it into your actual folder that you use for doing all the coding and all. So for me, the actual folder, let me open. So this is my actual folder. So I'll right click on it and I'll simply say paste. But right now I already have pasted it into this test folder release 02. So no need for me to paste it. So at home you're gonna paste it over any of the folder that you use, and then keep on pasting the remaining releases one after the other into this folder so that you will have all of the releases handy. Now you have to click on this release folder and you have to open this folder into the IntelliJ, and it opens like this, where these two are made as Maven modules. This is a Maven parent module and this is a child module. I mean, it is arranged as a child module by the IntelliJ. You don't have to specifically write it in the pom.xml, not needed for that, but you can arrange it into this. What this gives an advantage is that if you need to refresh the Maven, you can do it in just one button click, and you can arrange it. You can also do any dependencies you want to add across the project. You can do it in one click. So it helps that way. So once you are done that, you can open the order service maybe, and you have the application dot properties. So over here you are going to write all of your data source things. So once you install your database, you will be creating this schema into that. The SQL schema you can create into that, and that you will be using in this URL, the connection URL. Username you can put, password you can put, the driver class you have to put, initialization you have to do. Also the driver class, if you have not downloaded, you might want to download that. Let me just see whether I have downloaded. I don't see it in the downloads folder. I'll just copy it and paste it into the download folder. And in the Gari page also, I'll give one link for that. But I think guys, since you already know quite a few things about REST services, maybe this also you might be knowing, but still I'll be I'll paste it into the some link or some page somewhere. And then you have to do these following properties. So now what happens is that what our intention in doing the order service and product service right now is merely create a client service which is connecting to MySQL database. And in case of product service, it is gonna be, let us close the other tabs. It is gonna be the MongoDB that we want to connect to. So our intention of basically creating this particular order service and product service is only that it should act as a web client and it should connect to the MongoDB. So how to do that is we have to go to the Spring IO. We have to select the Maven, Java, the Spring Boot. This latest version will work actually. In very minor use cases, this latest version might not work, because what happens is that there are release trains that the Spring Boot follows. In one particular release, may not be all the features will work coherently. They might create their own issues of version mismatch. So in particular cases, we will come to those cases as and when we see the code, we will come to those cases. So this version you have to select. Now over here you can give any of your group ID. For example, you can, let me just, okay, you can just simply type over here com example, and over here you can write order dash service. So the name automatic it has taken, and demo, then package it as a jar and select the Java version 17 and then click on generate. So if you want to have a preview of what our POM is gonna look with all of this, you can click on the explore. This comes up. Guys, just give me 1 second. Just 1 second. Okay, sorry. So you can click on the explore button and you will get to preview how your pom.xml is gonna look like. These are common stuff. The parent will be there, group id, artifact id, version name, description, as per what you have written. No, all that will come over here. Now what is main is this properties. Now in this properties, the Java version and going ahead your Spring Cloud version, that will come over here. That is important because what happens if there is any issue with our code, that there is a version mismatch or something that I just now explained, this is gonna be the version that you're gonna change, the Spring Cloud, not the Java version, the Spring Cloud version that appears over here, that we're gonna change. Now, following that is this dependency, and then what comes in this dependency is just all about the dependencies that you select. So for us at release 2, what we're gonna do is that we are gonna type in web, the Spring Web comes. As you see, build web including RESTful applications using Spring MVC. So this is something that we require so that our Spring Boot will be capable of handling our service as a RESTful client service. Then going ahead, we also need the, in release 2, what all we need, just let me see it once. Yeah, we need the data JPA. So when we are gonna make it as a data JPA, what we need is, we need this Spring Data persistent, and there is also the MySQL driver dependency that we require. So these are the three. When you select the three, we get the starter data JPA, the Spring Boot data JPA, and the MySQL connector. And also after that, we need the Lombok. Lombok is one framework which enables to write certain boilerplate code that we require, like getter, setter, constructor of the POJO that is acting as a POJO for our database. So in that, once you click on the explore, you will be able to verify whether everything is in order. So we have the data JPA, the web, the connector, the project Lombok, and the following things it automatically adds: the test, the Maven plugin, and the repositories that it is gonna fetch the data from, fetch the jars from. So let this all of it be as it is. So you can directly hit the generate button. It will bundle it and send it into a zip file, and you can download it and then use it as per what we just now saw. Let me just quickly, it is over here. So finally, then we get this as a release, and we rename the folder as release 02, and we import it into our IntelliJ. Now in our IntelliJ, we have already imported it. We have the order service, product service, which use the get, fetch, and create APIs are implemented. So that is already implemented. So you can start off by using this file. We have to annotate it as REST controller, as request mapping, all args consider, as we do typically for any REST endpoint that we are gonna plan to expose. So we have this request mapping, the API order 6. In the next session, I'll remove this order 6 and all that I have been using. So don't bother about this, but you just take it as it is. For now, I'll update it and you can take the updated. But till release 7, this 06 and all is gonna be there. You can just ignore it and consider the API endpoint as API/order 06. Let it be as it is. In the next session, I'll remove this part. So it becomes more simpler to follow. If we have just API/order, we can just follow that much. That is fine. Then we have what all is there in the order controller. As we discussed, there is this find all, find by ID, create product. Now, since you all have already been into the rest, I won't go into individual annotation, what all and how all the things, right? So you can see that there is this at the delete mapping annotation, means this is an delete API. Then there is a @post, and there is a address request body. So this is the request body payload that we are going to use in the Postman while testing this particular endpoint. Then there is one get ID, where we have this path variable that we are gonna use in our Postman collection, and that we are gonna collect into the add the path variable. So this is all about the order controller. Backing that, we have to create an order repository class and a order class. The order class is nothing but the Pojo that we say talked about, and the table name, you can give the table name as t underscore order. Now when you run this application, it is gonna create this t order at the back end automatically. So guys, don't do any of this stuff, coding stuff right now. You can do it around say after the session, and you can ping me if there is an issue. You can send me any screenshot, you can send me the error message, and we can debug that. But during the session, please focus on the session. We have got now 45 minutes remaining to cover the release 02 and the release 05. So at the rate table, there is the T order table that we can write the name. Hibernate will automatically create it in the backend during the server boot up. And then inside order, we have only ID and total. You can create other, variables and all, but it's, guys, see, we have gonna focus on the microservice implementation. So don't go into creating long pojos. We will just keep it short. We'll use one ID and total. So this is the pojo, this is the repository interface, and this is gonna be used into our controller. This is the order repository class, and here is the implementation, but this is only an interface. So where is the code and all exactly? So there is one JPA repository that it is extending, and this JPA repository has got all the implementation. If you see, there are 4 implementations. We can click on that and we can get to see what all are the implementations. So let us click on this JPA repository. Yeah, so this is all of the implementation that is done. Let me quickly. So this is the implementation that is done. Simple JPA repository, and inside that there will be the methods that we require actually to connect with, coordinate with the database, that is delete by ID, delete or delete all by ID. All this stuff is implemented over here in this class, simple JPA repository class. So that is why we needn't write any of the code. We only have to implement the order repository and pass it the Pojo and the ID. Inside of the Pojo, what is going to be the type of the ID? Like that, we have to create a JPA repository, or rather we have to just mark it into its variables, the generic variables, the order and the long. We have to set into JPA repository and extend it to our custom repository that we plan to create, and that is then used in our order repository. So when the order controller, which is a REST controller that gets booted up during the boot up, server boot up, it internally takes care of booting up the order repository also, creates an object of it, and it will be then uh, it will be then utilized in our all of the API endpoints. We just have to call the methods, but we don't have to implement all these methods. So that is about the code of the order service. Similarly, the code is there for the, we have spoken about this. And yes, the server port we have to mention. Now, why we have to mention, I'll just tell you. So this is the test class that Spring automatically creates. But in the case of the JPA, it does not create this test class, whatever it is executing the test. It does not create the repo and all, the schema and all. But in the case of product service, what happens is that there is a test class over here inside. This is created by the Maven itself. When we click on the generate, the Spring IO itself, it adds this particular code, and that is how we get the context loads. This is the method, and that is responsible for loading all of the beans inside of the Spring application. So in the case of MongoDB, what it happens is that it automatically creates the bean of the product, what we would say document, and it creates it. So what we need to do for that is we have to go to the test class. I don't think I've removed this. So, okay, fine. We will just go ahead and test it. Let me see what all I have removed. Okay, everything is there, but guys, you need to remove only this method. Maybe in the next releases, this code has been removed. Let us execute this code then. For the service, for testing the release 0 to what we have to do, there is a Postman collection over here that we have to copy. So let us copy the path. We'll click on this and there is an absolute path. We will click on this absolute path that is gone now in the clipboard. So we will go to our Postman. Let me open it. Once you download and open it, you can create any of your workspace, and inside that workspace, now my workspace over here is the microservices. The name of the workspace is microservices. Into that microservices, you can import it by clicking on the import button and then clicking on the files. And then you just have to paste the entire path that is there already in the clipboard. You have to paste it over here. This is the Postman collection. Yeah, contract testing dot postman collection dot JSON, and that is belonging to the release 02. So this is what we put inside the clipboard, and that we gonna then open. So here it says the collection exists because in my case I have already imported it once. A collection this already exists. So what would you like to do? Do you want to replace it or do you want to import as a copy? So always you can do import as a copy. And here it has got created with the name contract testing space copy. So in this now you can rename it to the release 02. Because why? Because it is mapped to release 02. It is inside the bundle of the release 02, because in each of the releases incremental changes are going to happen. So we will rename it, and that's how this release 02 has come into this workspace. So I've already done it once, so I have it over here. And then inside release 2 we have get all products. Now in this, the URL, it is formed like this. It is having the product service port as a parameter, and it is having a version, API version. Actually, this I'm going to remove, as I told you, the -06 I'm going to remove in the code as well as in the collection starting from the release 08. So for the time being, you might have to just keep this API revision as it is. These basically are the variables that we create. Now in Java, we create variables. Similarly, in the Postman, we can create variables. Go to this parent folder, and that is the collection name. That is the release 02. And here, this is all written by the Postman itself. About this collection help you to test and everything it has written. So this is the collection, and in this collection we can set variables. So when you go to the first of all the collection, you have to click on, and then you have to go over here and click on the variables. It lists out the variables that we can use. So base URL, this is added by the Postman himself, though so I don't know. Then the next is the API revision. API revision, as it is, you keep it as it is, because in the release 07 onwards, release 08 onwards, I'll remove this. But for now, let it be. And the product service port and product order service port. So now at one port, only one endpoint we can expose. So that is why in the order service, we have to make it as 8081. So that is one change that we need to do in the code other than the zipped file code. So the zip file may not be having this 8081. We have to manually do it in the zip file. So that is something. Now when we go to get all products, the product service port, as we saw from the variable it will pick, there you have to set it. If it is any value other than 8080, then you will have to set it to 8080. And where you will set it? In this variables you will set it. This is the product service port. So that way the API endpoint will get the 8080, and this you needn't change at all in the variables. Just let it be, and then you hit the send. But now the port is not, the application is not up and running. So let us boot up. Now to run the product service, we have to go to the uh, Java file of the Spring application. This is marked as a Spring Boot application. This comes automatically in the, when you click on the generate button, this is what automatically gets created. So you have to right click on it and run the product service. Now I've already run it once, so it has already come to my this configuration list. So for the first time, you have to manually traverse to this. You have to right click. This is the Spring Boot application. You have to right click on it and you have to run it. So once you run it, you see all this, and at the end there will be product service application is started, and the port, most important is the port. The port it has provided is 8080 because that is the default port. So no issues about the product service. The port is 8080 and it can very well execute. Now in case of order service, you again traverse to the main Spring Boot class, Spring Boot application class. You right click on it and you run it. But when you are using the zip file code as it is, you have to manually go to the application.properties and add this file, this port number over here. This is a Spring configuration server.port, and that we can specify to any port that we want to use. So now 8080 is already being used over here for the product service application. So now what do we do for order service? If it is 8080, it will give an error that there is another application already running on the 8080. That's why we have to make this server.port as 8081 in the case of the order service. And then we have to right click on the order service application and run the order service method, main method. That is, we are going to boot up the server for order service. Now the server has started without any port issues. It has started the order service at the port 8081. And that is how we have these two services running in our Postman. Now we can click on the Postman, the get endpoint. The first get endpoint, these are all product related. Get all product, get product by ID, create product, delete product by ID. Then starts the order APIs. Get order by ID, create order, and delete order. So one by one we will test them. First is we are going to hit the get all products. We are going to send it. And this is the endpoint we have received. Sometimes it is not well formatted. Just change it to JSON. It will be formatted. So it means that from the database, it could fetch these three products, the iPhone 11, 13, and 15. They are already there in the database. So let us open the database and just confirm quickly. This is a MySQL version, MySQL Workbench version CE 8.0. About This is the MySQL Workbench 8.0, and this is the exact version that I am using. So once you install the MySQL Workbench, ask them to install MySQL Workbench 8.0, specifically this particular and Community Edition, most importantly, because Community Edition is an available edition. Remaining all are licensed editions. So we have to go only and only for the Community Edition. So that is one thing. Then we have to create a new connection. When we begin freshly, we have to create a new connection. And in that new connection, we have to specify the local host and the port. So the local host is going to be 127.0.0.1 and port is going to be 3306, and password, whichever you have set, whichever the ticket person has set for you, the password needs to be set. So that password you're going to use for opening this connection. So once you open the connection, actually you don't have to create any schema as such, because schema already gets created. We have this configuration file, application.properties, where we have mentioned this. So Hibernate itself takes care of creating the schema. If at all there is some issue, some setting is there, not there, then you have to go to the application.properties and manually create this schema. So you can right click over here, schemas. Okay, it is yeah. You can just right click on the schemas page, and it gives you a page to mention your schema name. Here you are gonna paste this schema name from the file. You're gonna copy this and you're gonna paste it over here and go ahead and create it. That's all. So it gets created. The schema gets created with no tables inside it. That is the thing to create the schema. Once you create the schema, you will have this schema available over here, and we need and create the tables and all get created by the Hibernate where during the boot up. There will be these um, now it is already created, that's why it has not given any of the logger messages, but it logs it into the console about what all it has created in the database or updated in the database, it keeps logging. So that's about the MySQL. And the product, basically this product service that we have fired, we have to verify that that is present in the MongoDB. So after you install the MongoDB, this will be the MongoDB. This is the MongoDB Compass basically. So this is the only the GUI. So it mentions the version over here that I am using 140 and 3. So this is only the client for installing the MongoDB. 1 minute. So it is basically the version is mentioned on the Gari page. The Gari page that I showed no right in the beginning view. Yeah. Yeah, the prerequisites. So inside that there is this Mongo 704 installer. This is the server installer. And what we have right over here, this is only the client application accessing that server. So here we have to open the connection. Say, I think this comes by default written over here. So this pop-up comes by default on the fresh installation. You just have to click on the connect. Now, once you get connected, you see that there is product service 06 already there. Actually, in the case of MongoDB, you don't have to create this product service 06. It automatically gets created. But if it doesn't get created, there is this plus button over here. By creating the database, by using this plus button, you can create the database. If I click on it, it is just this. And collection name, you can write as product. So that is what you will write over here. And here you will write product service -06. So this is how you will write and you will create the database. Let us create product service 0. I'll write, we will write something like test underscore 06 and create the database. So that is how it gets created, and this product document gets created inside of it. That no needn't worry, even if you don't create, it will get created once you run the application. And if it doesn't get created, you will have to write it manually. Sometimes it gets created because of the test class that I have written over there. The test class automatically creates it. If it doesn't, then you have to create it manually. So let us delete it for now. And go to the document and see what all are the records in it. So there is 11, 13 and 15, the same ones that we see over here. Now we go ahead to get exactly the product by product ID. So we will pick up one ID which is of the 13. We will go to get by ID. We'll paste it as a path parameter. And we will send this. So why are we not receiving it? Okay, let us see. There is this enter button that has got. Okay. We will copy it a bit carefully this time. Okay, so this get by ID is returning us the iPhone 13. So these two endpoints are done. Let us do delete by ID. So we'll paste the same ID into the get delete by ID, send it, that is getting deleted. So this is a message that I have written in the code. You can see it since you have already implemented, a lot of you have implemented the post endpoints. If you have not implemented, no worries. After the call, as it is, you will be starting. You can ping me that I have not implemented. So where is this code coming from? So I'll tell you. But anyways, I'll tell you right now. So this is something that is implemented in our product controller. Our product controller is this particular class, and it is having all of these endpoints: find all, find by ID, create product, delete all, and delete by ID. So the delete by ID, I have written this code. So ID plus space deleted dot dot dot. That is what gets returned as a string. And then internally Spring Boot displays it on our client console, whichever is the client console, be it browser, be it Postman, or returns it to the application that calls it. And in that application, we can collect it in the form of a string variable. So that is why it has come over here as this has got deleted. Now we can delete all of the products by doing this delete all. So let us do it. It's just 634 basically. Let us quickly do it. We have deleted all the products and we will create the products again. So now we will do it as iPhone 16. Now since we have deleted it, but we have not deleted basically the schema in the backend. So internally it keeps on keeping track of it. Let us do this iPhone 16 and we will get this ID. We will go to the create product. We'll put this ID over here and do a send. And we get this iPhone 16 that we have created. So these all endpoints are functioning. And let's go to the order. Now in the case of order, there is one point I had discussed about the um, no, in the case of actually product controller only, we had this point. Okay, I'll just check if at all anybody gets any issues in the product controller, that is of the MongoDB, where the DB gets automatically created and keeps on getting created. Irrespective of whatever endpoint you fire, it will not give the data that you are firing. You please ping back to me. I'll tell you what the issue is. In the case of this endpoint, we need to first go to the test class and we have to delete this particular test. That's all. That is what is required. In the case of any data not coming up on the screen, you have this one particular. So try it once at your end. If this gives an issue, then this is the particular root cause of it that we have to comment out this code. So going ahead with get all orders, this is the order service port. It is 8081 because we need it as 8081. 8080 will not work for the order service. And this is API revision. Just ignore this 06. Let it be there. In the next revision, it will be removed by me from Postman collection and in the Java code. So let us hit the send and we get all of the orders that are there. Presently only the order 15 is over there. So let us do a get order by ID and place 15 as the path variable over here because that's how we have implemented our get by ID code. We have to add the path variable as seen in the start of the class. So it is giving that this is not present. So let us see what is the issue is here. By mistake, I have written product service. So we have to actually guys change it to order service. I think it must be there in the zip file as order service. I might have changed it, but anyways, you have it in the recording, so you will come across this issue. So you can change it to the order service, save the file by the save button, and then click on the send. So you get all the data that is there in the database. Then you can create the order. Let us go to the create order. In the create order, we have to go to the body. We have to write a JSON with total and 100 because that's all we have written in our Pojo. Only this much is the create JSON. And then we are going to hit the send button. Now here is the correct value, order service port, which is 8081. This revision as it is, we are going to ignore for now. They click on the send and this order gets created. So order ID, it is 16. Here the order ID is 15. So it has incremented it internally because we have used the annotation in the Pojo using the annotation generated. So we will do here get by order ID. We have already tested. So let us do get all orders and do a send. Now it gives 15 and 16. Going ahead, we will do delete by order ID. We'll delete the 15 Let us say we'll delete the 15 and do a send. So 15 is deleted because in the controller, I have written 15 is deleted in the service method. Let us once open the order controller. Here is the order controller and this is the all the classes. Now we don't have to implement this because the JPA repository takes care of the implementation for us. So here we have create product, delete all, delete by ID. So these are all implemented and here is the message that is we are seeing in the postman, that is ID plus deleted dot dot dot. So that is what comes up over here once we delete the ID. This is the response that we are sending from our service method of the order controller. And this is what then reaches to our postman or to our browser. If we are putting this endpoint in the browser, that is what we get in the browser or any other API testing tool that we are using. It comes on the console. So when we delete all orders, you have a correct order port over here, correct API version. We go to send and all orders are deleted because in the service method we have all orders are deleted. Now once we delete all the orders, we will try to create a single order. We will write over here, say suppose 700 and then hit the send. So order ID 17 is created. We will do get all orders to see what is now the final state of our database. It is having only 17. We will go into our database to confirm this. We will right click on the table and select the first. Okay, we have right click on the table and there is this select rows. Limit is 1000 that we have done directly. And over here, this is the portion where we get the order ID and the order total that we have input in this postman create. We have set into the input payload that has gone over here and 70 is auto generated by the Spring Boot, the JPA repository. It auto generates it. We have added the generate ID. So that is how the 17 gets generated. We don't have to mark it. We don't have to put it into the payload. So now all of these API are tested thoroughly that we have get all, get order by ID, create, delete all and delete by ID. These are working fine. So that is what is present in the release 02. That's it. And slowly we are gonna build up on our release 02. So let's go to release 05. So in release 05, what we implemented is that first of all, we have this. mm, okay, this explains just all the things that I just now explained. And the vault server we are not going to do today. So in the next session, we will go through these particular sites. Then port numbers I have explained. Okay, so we can go to this slide number. Okay, we are done with all these slides. So let us do one thing. We will go to the releases page in the browser. And we need to go now beyond the 02. What are we gonna build on top of 02 is the 03. And what is the 03? It is gonna implement the discovery server and the discovery client. So now what is the case of discovery server? So what all does a discovery server do? Let us just quickly open the page for that. Now I'm disconnected with this VPN. Okay. So let's go to this Spring Cloud page. And in this page, we see these are the major patterns that are implemented in the Spring Cloud API. This is the page that I opened from the GARI, the Spring Cloud dash self-study dash Spring Cloud. And it opens up like this. And it has got the first, it has mentioned is the distributed or versioned configuration that I explained to you, that the configuration files we need to extract from our product service and order service and put it into a separate component. That is what we are going to do in the configuration. And service registration and discovery. So this service registration, this is something that the framework handles it for us. But what is service registration? It is via some internal classes. We will see the internal classes in our next session. We may not have time today, but in the next session we can debug and go in depth. So for now, in this session and after this session, sorry, not in this session, after this session, you can do this releases. You can take the zips into your desktop, and you can for now import it into IntelliJ and try to execute it. What all errors come now during execution, you ping me, we will sort that out, and then we can proceed into going into debugging with individual debug classes and all that we will do in the next. So we can debug into the framework service registration classes and actually see how it is getting registered. That we will see in the next class. So this is the service registration and the discovery. These two are implemented um, in today's code. So what is implemented in the 03 is only discovery server and discovery client. So let us take the 03. We will unzip it and finally we will open it into our IntelliJ. It opens up something like this. Here, release 03. Before that, we can shut down these two servers. Shutdown. Now in this, what we have to do is that open this release 03. There is this discovery server that gets added. Now from where does this particular come from? So we have this Spring initializer. Over here we have to write discovery server, and this jar we have to select, the Spring Boot version we have to select, Java and Maven we have to select, and in the dependencies part we have to add the discovery server dependency, discovery server. So there is this two options that come, Eureka Discovery Client and Eureka Server. So now the discovery server and client are implemented by a ton of frameworks in the market. So in Netflix, it is done by the Eureka Server, and the corresponding client it has named as Discovery Client, Eureka Discovery Client. So if in your application you are using Eureka Server, you have to use the Eureka Discovery Client. Why? Because Spring Boot is managing the Eureka Discovery server in such a way that it accepts the requests that are getting sent by the Eureka Discovery client. It is always the client who sends the pings to the Eureka server. It can be in the form of health. The status of the client that it is pinging to the server, or it can be an actual request for any service registry, because when the Eureka Discovery client boots up, what it requires is that where is the discovery server and where is the service registry inside the discovery server, that it needs to access and pull and create its own copy in its container environment. So that is something that Eureka Discovery client does, and that is then used by the Eureka server. So these go hand in hand, Eureka server, Eureka Discovery client. So for creating the server, we will go to Eureka server and we can explore it. And what we see now over here is the Spring Cloud version. This is very important because this, if certain functionality is not working in your application for some reason or the other, here is the version change that you have to go. Now there is something called as release train. Let us see about release train in the next session. Right now we will cover up only this. So Spring Cloud version is over here and the dependency for the Eureka server is over here. The remaining not needed. Even Lombok is not needed. So you just have to generate and download it. But you guys don't do all of this. Directly you go to the releases page and download it from this SRC that is over here. This you have to click download and then rename and import as a release-03 into your IntelliJ. That is all. Don't go to the Git and check it out and etc. If you want to do, you can do it. But in case of errors, you will waste time troubleshooting those issues instead of troubleshooting the microservice issues. That is the intention behind this. So when we open the discovery server, we see this POM XML. It has got this server dependency. Then what we have to do, we have to go to the main Java and this Spring Boot application, and we have to add this. Now in this there is enable Eureka server. We didn't have it in the product service application, order service application. We have to add it. By adding that, what happens is that this class or this service gets marked as a enable as a Eureka server. So once it gets marked as a Eureka server, what it means is that the main thing it will be doing is for now it will be creating the service registry. So the service registry we will debug it the next time, but right now we will see how to get these services up and running. So once these are ready, you can get the base for our session 2 ready with you. So Eureka client, register with Eureka. This you have to mention. Why? Because in the Eureka environment, that means in the Eureka client and Eureka server implementations, it is the client that requests the registry. We saw that the client is the one that pings the server and informs it about its health. It fetches the registry from the client. So the client needs to always by default do this activity. That's why in the Eureka server and the client, these two are marked by default as true. The default value is true. What that means is that any service which is having the application properties with this particular fetch registry as true, it is gonna try to search for the server. But right now we are inside the server itself, so there's no need to fetch the registry as such. That is why it is made as false, particularly in the case of discovery server. And also register with Eureka is false because it is the client service responsibility to register with the Eureka server. That means the discovery server, and inform it about its host, about the port, about the endpoints that are being made available via that service. It is the responsibility of the client. So that is why register with Eureka is by default true. So we have to make this 2 as false. Server port, again we have to make it as 8761 because that is the default port. So always guys, we have to stick to what are the default values of the ports. That makes our life better because 8761 is the default value. So in the client service, we don't have to explicitly tell the client service that was the discovery server is booted up at 8761 because this is the default value. So let us put this default value inside the discovery server and make it booted up at 8761, so that when we go to the order service, now in the order service, what all change we need to do to make it or enable it as becoming a discovery client is that first thing and the only thing is that in the pom.xml we have to add this Eureka client uh, dependency. So that is the dependency we saw just 2 minutes back when I opened that dependency in Spring IO. So this is the dependency that gets added into your order service zip that gets created. But guys, you don't need to do all that because in release 03, you will automatically get this pom.xml updated. And the SRC will also have this order service application. You don't need to add any extra annotation also over here. No change in the controller is also required. So what is the change that is associated? So let us open the application.properties, and these three are required to be added. I guess only these two, because Spring application name will already be present in the release-03. But anyways, so if you compare no this application.properties from the release 03 to the release 02, like this, you can do one quick check. Once you install the Beyond Compare, what you do is go to the release 02, go to order service, SRC. That's why I was telling that don't get into coding, right away. Just pay focus on the what all content is getting told. So by yourself you will be able to do it even before referring to the recording. So you traverse to the order service application.properties, you right click on it. When the Beyond Compare is installed, you have to select this, select left file for compare. Then you have to go to the product service. Similarly, you have to navigate to the application dot, oh sorry, we have to go to the release 03. We are, yeah, in the order service. So you go to the release 03, you go to the order service, navigate to application.properties. And in this, you can right click and If the pop-up is not coming, you press the shift button and then do the right click, and now you go to compare to application.properties. This is the file that we have previously selected, no? So beyond compare is asking you to compare to application.properties. Click on it. So release 02 will be compared to release 03. Continue. You can use any application for comparing these two files. That's not an issue. So what happens is that, yes, so in the release 03, this is the release 03. Let's go over here. This is the release 03, and on the left side is our release 02. Now, what is happening in the release 02 is that we have not mentioned any Eureka instance ID or any of this stuff. Basically, we have not mentioned this line number 3 that we have done in the release 03. That is absent in release 02 because that feature has been added in the release 03. The enablement of the discovery client that gets added in the release 03. So that's why it is not in the release 02. Like this, at your own, you can compare each and every file from the release 02 and 3 and identify what all has gotten added into the incremental releases. So this is something that Eureka instance ID. Now we will see what is this instance ID and why we need to add it like this over here. So guys, basically this is not required to make your client enabled as a discovery client. To make this particular order service into a discovery client, none of this is actually required. Only this port maybe might be required. I'll tell you why it is 0, but none of it is required. Why? Because only by adding the pom.xml change in our order service, we have already made it as a discovery client and it will start functioning as a discovery client. We needn't do any of this coding. We just have to add this client. But we have added this. Now, why we have added this? Let us boot up. Now, first, the order of booting will always be discovery server. First, we have to boot up. So right click on the Spring Boot file, run the application, and the discovery server is starts booting up. Then we have to go to the order service and application. We have to right click and again run this application. Product service also will do just in a short while. So now in the order service, what is the change we have done? Server port is equal to 0. That means that we are informing the Tomcat inside the Spring Boot about the port, the value it has to select by itself. We have not specified anything about what this port is gonna be, whether it is gonna be 8081, 8082, none of that stuff. So it is by itself, it will randomly select a port and place it into the server.port and it will boot up the order service on that port. Now, where we will get the information what the Tomcat has selected from this console. We have to go to this console and here in the logger messages, there is this Tomcat started on the port. So this is something that you can use and copy this port from. Copy and then put it into the postman, the variable section that we saw over there. You have to put it against the order service. So that gets enabled when we do server.port is equal to 0. Now, why do we require this? Why do we even need to make this feature as 0 so that the Tomcat will start picking random port numbers? Because we need our order service to become a microservice. That means that we will have multiple instances of the order service being executed, being booted up at the same time. Now, when we have this order service getting booted up at the 8081, suppose, then when we open the boot up a next instance, we can boot it up by going over here. First, we have to do an edit and confirm that it is actually allowing multiple instances. So in my case, it is not allowing. So I have to click this checkbox. Now go in this and again verify. See, now it has got checked and now you have to click on the run. That means a multiple instance gets booted up by the IntelliJ. This is one way of telling the IntelliJ that allow multiple instances of this order service application to run in your execution environment. Otherwise, it will not allow. So you have to then click on this run. So 87365 is the first port. 87365. Now let us see what is the port that gets assigned to this second instance. We might overshoot the time is what I suspect. Let us see. Just 10 minutes extra I will take. I just hope it's all okay with you guys because this is a very important topic. So let us just do 10 minutes extra. Okay, guys. So we have this 57478 got assigned, and previously it was 57365. So that is why we have to do the server dot port as 0, so that the Tomcat starts booting up at different ports. Each time you boot up a new instance, it gets booted up with this. So you can just play around with this stuff in the release dash 03. This is a having the minimum what we would say implementations. In 04 and 05 you will have different things to getting added, so you may not have, you may lose that capability to do so much of experimentation in the release 04 or 05. So release 03 you can use for doing a lot of playing around with this stuff. So this is the server port 0, and then you have to name the application. Now why do we need to name the application? That is just for the sake of there is a dashboard that gets opened, the Eureka dashboard. Now we have the discovery server over here. We will see what port it is being run at. So by default, it is the 8761 that gets used by the Tomcat for the discovery server. So that is the port at which discovery server is booted up. Let us go to the Eureka dashboard. Eureka dashboard is localhost 8761. So you have to go at this, and here you see this is the Eureka dashboard. So what all do you see on this dashboard is that there is first the Spring Eureka, the home, and the last 100 since the setup. So some of this stuff is there. Then comes the system status. The environment is test, data center is default. So all of these are the default values. We can set them by setting these values inside our discovery server configuration files. Then these are the DS replicas. So we have the local host over here. So this is the name of the basically the host that is executing all these Eureka servers and accepting requests from the Eureka clients. Now is the main part. So here is what you see, order service dash 06. So this is something that is mentioned in this file. Order service. Let us go to the order service and application dot properties. So here is the value that we have put, and that gets input over here. Now, as we see, we have booted up only the order service. So only order service record gets added into this table, and there is no other application running as such. But we remember that for order service, we booted up two instances. So here we have it written up into bracket 2. So this is the way the Eureka dashboard logs all of these details about what is the instance that is running, how many instances are running, and here is the exact ID of the instance. Now what is this ID? We have already given the format over here. Eureka instance dot instance ID is equal to, and then we have this. So this makes actually till over here dollar spring dot application name. This is the spring dot application name, and that gets put over here to form the string of the Eureka instance ID. So this is the ID actually, and this is the value that we are putting into it. The first goes as the application name, and then we have the random UUID. So this is a class basically which Spring Boot has, and it uses it to generate the random UUID, and that is then get set over here. So we will see internally how this class is getting picked up in the next session. So this is the format of the instance ID of our running instance. So here we have order service 06 underscore opening round bracket. So that's what it is over here. The order service 06 underscore and then the opening bracket. Inside the bracket is the dollar value. This is the random number, and that comes over here starting with the 6D96 ending with 770. This is the entire random number. So why do we need a random number? Just for the sake of it, that we can identify these instances individually, because we need to identify what is happening with each of our with each of our instance. So this is something where it gets logged over here also. So we can track it by using this order service ID. So this is the ID that is used by the while registering the instance, and that gets logged into the console and into the dashboard. So it makes you enables you to track it. You can click on it, and if you see the URL mentions, that is okay. That is not an issue. We have to change these things and a little bit do some debugging, but that we can do in the next. But basically, what we want to focus on is that the actuator info is the endpoint that is being used. So guys, that is also present in our Spring Boot collection, the Postman collection. If you see the latest one, I think this is gonna be the latest one. So here at the end of it are all the actuator endpoints. So these are very important endpoints and they give a lot of insight into what the application is running. But that is related to the config refresh. And guys, maybe we will do the config refresh into the next session. But for now, we have got a lot of things to do. We have to get the installers in place. We have to get this service booted up. So it needs a lot of troubleshooting also. So you guys do that, and if any issues, you can ping me. We will check that out. So there will be some or the other things that we will need to check whether these installers are done well or not. So that is something. Going ahead, um, so this is something about the release 03. We can test it out over here. So how do we test it now? So we have order service. The one of its instance is running, the other is instance is running. Guys, so same you can do for the product service, the testing. I'll do testing for the order service. So this is the port. We can copy the port. This is the first instance. This is the second instance of the order service. Go to the Postman collection. You take the release 03. I told you how to get the release 03. Go to the variables. Then this order service port is there. So that you have to place it over here. Okay, actually, you have this release 04. So it is in release 04 onwards that you see this particular order service 1 port and order service 2 port. So maybe that testing you can do in the release 04. Let us see what all we can test in the release 03. We have this get all orders. Okay, but before that we have to put the variable. So the port, we have to update it to our present port and we have to save it. Click on the save button. This gets saved. Then you go to get all orders and there is this order service port. API revision you can ignore and do a send. So you get this 17. Now let us create an order. Go to the body and put here as maybe 800. Save it, send it. So we are doing a create with the 18. Now let us go to DB once to check if everything is okay here, and we will fire a select request, or we can just refresh this. Here the 18 comes and the 800 comes. Over here we can see. So we have the 18800 into the database. Now we will do a get all orders one more time, or we can do a get by ID on the 18. We will do a 18 over here and do a send. So this is 18 and then we can delete it and delete all orders. So let us do its testing. We will delete the 18 and 18 is deleted. So let's see, we will refresh in the DB. The 18 is gone. Then we will do delete all orders and we have to do nothing. We have to just send the query and all orders are deleted. Now let us do get all orders and do a send. There is nothing because we have deleted all the orders. Then we will do get ID, create the order one more time just to create one record into the DB before we leave. So this is the 900, we send it. It's saying 900 is created. So guys, this also na, it is getting shown in the Postman because in the controller we have written code for it. This is the order controller and in the create we have written order repository dot save order. So whatever the save is returning, it is returning one order object itself. So see, that is getting returned by this service method and then that gets sent to our client application for showing us on the console. So that is how this otherwise you get only 201 created. By default you get only 201. You have to independently add it into the controller to view it. So this is all about the get orders. Now we have converted the application, we have enabled it as a discovery server and as a discovery client. Just we will close the second instance, we will download the 04 and do that second instance testing in the 04, because in the Postman it is not enabled for the other port. We can still do it by just copy pasting that new port and then checking, but it's done in the release 04. So let us quickly download the release 04, and I have already downloaded. So let me open the release 04. Let me boot up the discovery server. Let me boot up the order service, and one more order service we will boot up. Let this, we will boot it. Okay, I think the discovery server has not booted up for some reason. We will need it to be booted up, because the server needs to be booted up first. So while you play around with the code, you can just see what happens if you do not boot up the discovery server and instead just boot up the client. Then the client gives an error message on the console. So you can find out that console and we can see that in the next session. So for now, we will start the discovery server. We'll start the client, Eureka client, that is the order service. You can go to the beyond compare and check what all is changed in the release 04 as regards the discovery server, order service, product service. There is no change in that, but a config server has gotten added, guys. So this config server, no, for now I will just boot it up. Let me shut down the order service. Config server, no, the discussion on config server I'll do in the next session, because we are really run out of time. But this error has come because it has not got the configuration which I have put into the config server. So let us do one thing. I think the server also client instance, that is why it has, but still unregistering the application. Okay. Okay, we'll do one thing. We'll boot up the config server, right click, run. Let us do it one by one. I think it is getting shut down. Hello, guys. Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, Varsali.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You have been so cooperative. So what we will do is that the recording is there, and because for a minute I thought that maybe the team meeting might be accidentally shut down or something, and things like anyway. So that was great. So we have this Tomcat started in 8888. So the config server by default starts at 8888. We will see this in the next session. I was planning to cover config server also in this session, but we will take it up in the next session. Today we did only discovery server and different discovery client. So till the release dash 03, till the release dash 03 you do, and then we will do this in the next session. So what we have to do is config server application, we have to boot up. I'll just demo it right now. I've stopped the recording. We will redo it in the next session. Only 1 minute now I will take. We will run this only once. Yeah, discovery server now. Just let us see what is happening.
No, you're not sharing your screen, I think.
Oh, okay. Sorry, thanks for telling. Yeah. Okay, I'll reshare the screen. So this is the config server I have started by right clicking on the config server. Then the discovery server I have started. In the discovery server, let us see if there is any error or anything. It doesn't seem to have any error. 8761 is getting booted up. And then we have basically what is the case is that, yeah, we have to now start the client. So we have to start the order service. Yeah, I was just showing a demo of multiple ports. So we have to run the order service once, and then we have to go into the edit of the order service over here, edit the configuration, and here you have to check this allow multiple instances, already checked, that's good. And then you have to click on the run. So behind this there is one order service already booting up, and here when you click on the run, the second instance starts booting up. So here what is the port number, let us see. It is the 58296. So we will put the 58296 over here. This is the release 04, guys. Release 04. So you take the Postman collection for the release 04, and from where you can get this? From here itself. In the release 04, you have this at the over here, right over here. This is something you're gonna import, and you're gonna rename it to release 04. That's how we got the release 04, which is corresponding to the release 04 code base. So in here, we have to click over here. We have to go to the variables, and over here we have order service one dash port. So this is corresponding to one instance of the order service. You paste your port number over here. That is this one. Go back to the console. For the second instance, you go over here and take the port number from here. This is the port number. Copy it, paste it over here, and you get the two instances separately marked in our Postman. Now save this, and we can go to directly get all products. Now over here what I've done is, while forming this particular get all, get order, create order, delete all, delete order, I have used these ports alternately. That means in get all orders you are using the port 1, then in create order, then in get order by ID we are using the port 2. That means the second instance we are utilizing to do a get call. In the create, we are using the port 1, and in the delete all, we are using again port 1. Delete order by ID, we are using port 2. So you can just keep shuffling these port numbers. You remove this 1, you remove this 2, make it a 1. You remove anywhere, you remove the 2, make it as 1. Remove the 1 over here and make it as 2, and just keep on testing it. That will give you a confidence about what is happening. So in the background, what is happening is one instance is being used to do a get, and one instance, another instance is doing the post. So that gives the idea about what is the instances that are there in our container, and what are they doing exactly. So let us do a get all and click on the send. 19 is there because only 19 is there. While shutting down our release 03, we said we will do some shutdown with by adding one record. So now what we will do is we will create an order, and let us use the port 2 for that, suppose. And we will do a, here we have to do the change. We have to do, suppose here we do 20. So we have ID 20 getting created. So then we will use the get all orders, which is the server port 1. And there you get all this. So similarly, you can do testing for all this. Similarly, you can do testing for this product also by booting up two instances and putting this port numbers into the variable section. Maybe that is kind of a homework for you, that you will do this port changes for the product and test it. Config server, we will totally do it in the next session, because even if I start over here, it will take around 40 minutes for the entire thing. So let us now, it's already past 15 minutes, we have overshot now. So actually I maybe calculated the time incorrectly, but that's because I'm conducting a training for the first ever time. So let us, maybe convene our, session over here. This is the session number 1. Next Monday is gonna be our session number 2. So guys, we'll meet on next Monday. Over here is the schedule for that. Okay, 1 minute. Yeah, here is the schedule for that. When you click on the session 2, we come into session 2, that is 22nd January at 17 p.m. So 22nd January is the coming Monday. We'll meet on coming Monday at 5 p.m. And in the meantime, you can follow all these prerequisites. I'll update this for the session 2. I am yet updating, so I'll update this. The PPT also I'll update because it might be, but PPT is already updated, I feel so. Anyways, so you go through, first of all, go to session 1 and you do all these prerequisites. Then you take the code for the 02, 03, and then you do the testing as we discussed. You can refer to the recordings, and you can then bring your application at a stage where the release 04 is running. Release 05 we didn't get a time to check, but we will do the release 05 any which ways because the config part we are doing at that time. So guys, that's all from me at my end, and we'll meet on the 22nd, guys. So you come back on the 22nd. We will convene with the remaining stuff of today's session and the next session. The next session agenda I have put over here. That is the API gateway we will implement, the key cloak we will implement, Spring Bus we have to implement, and also we will do some debugging to find out the classes of the Spring framework which are actually doing this for us. Because guys, we didn't do any coding as such. If we see, we have marked annotations, we have done some application properties changes, and the actual discovery implementation is done by the framework. So let us do a debugging the next session and find that all out. So let us see in next session what all we can cover up. We'll meet on 22nd, guys. So okay, guys, thank you so much then.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank
Vishal.
you.
It
Thank
was
you
a
all.
nice session.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Vaishali.
much. Thank you.
Thank
Also,
you.
guys,
Bye.
okay. Guys, also there will be one feedback form that comes. You can feel that feedback also. That will be great, guys. So that's it,
Sure.
guys. Then.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure. Thank you.
thank you so much. Thanks all. See you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.